I'm honored to present the Laurel Award for Screen to Eric Roth.
Well, I'm very, very nervous. I don't like speaking in front of two people, much less, whatever, 200, 300. But I'll read this, and they said I should slow down, and if I go too long, they'll stop me, and you can throw me off. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for this. I wrote that I was in this building in 1981 for a strike meeting, and when I walked out to my car, a shitty, like grape-colored Ford Mustang, not the convertible. It was gone and stolen. I had a copy of a screenplay I was working on at the time in the car, and when the police found the car and returned it, they said it had been used in a bank robbery. It was a common car to rob banks with, and everything was gone, some clothes and the radio and a bunch of shit, and everything except that screenplay. And it had a typed note attached to it that said, "Characters are a little weak." Maybe this guy knew something. Thank you, David Fincher, who is indeed, as Aaron Sorkin put it so well, a national treasure, and those of us who adore him, a national pain in the ass. Thank you, David Milch, amazing man, a truly unique voice that illuminates us and confounds us and defines us in American Shakespeare, no joke. Thank you to my union, my guild, who the WGAW for over 40 years has kept me safe and dry and warm. Thank you to our president, Chris Kaiser, and Vice President Howard Rodham, and the board of directors who have been so gracious for giving me this. The past winners of Preston Sturges, the Billy Wilders, Horton Foote, and Irving Ravitch, and Harry and Frank Jr. My friends, dear Alvin Sargent, the Lion, Frank Pearson, the wonderfully crazy Bo Goldman, my idol, Robert Town, and Steve Zalian, who we all want to be. I'm truly humbled to be in the same sentence as real writers, and I mean that. And to some of the actors who played characters who said my words, and I started writing these, and I couldn't believe it, and I thought my thoughts, these same people, Paul Newman and Robert Redford, and dear Tom Hanks, and Brad Pitt, and Albert Finney, and Christopher Plummer, and Will Smith, and Russell Crowe, Max von Sydow, and Al Pacino, and Robert De Niro, and Katie Blanchett, and Sandra Bullock, and Sally Field, Robin Wright, and of course, Cher. Or some of the directors, Zemeckis and Mann, and Kurosawa, and Spielberg, and how about that, I wrote for Kurosawa. Spielberg and Daldry and Fincher, talk about Oh Lucky Man. And the writers who gave me their work to adapt when I was able to, even those who were dead, F. Scott Fitzgerald. And to the writers who made me better, the ones I collaborated with, the Michael Manns and the Robert Swycourt, and Richard Lee Gravenise and Tony Kushner. I thank my agent and friend for 20 years, Doc, and Craig Gehring, who sits over there bored to death, who listens every day to my onsets, and the mad scientist, John Levin, my lawyer to the stars, A Dog with a Bone, Alan Wertheimer, the people who said yes and trusted me to be late and long and annoyed by it all, my breakfast date and friend, Jeff Robinoff, my Warner Brothers home with Sue Kroll and Lynn Harris and Craig Silverman, Sherry Lansing, who was always there for me forever, and producer Kathy Kennedy, little Brad Gray, and a lot of Ron Meyer. And the only thing that matters when the lights go up, my best adaptations and most profound originals, my many children, my 6 grandchildren, and my 6 grandchildren. My Annie, doctor, who keeps me alive with chicken wire spit and affection. My wife Deborah, a lawyer, a professor, a bioethicist, a true rare light who for 25 years, through thick and thin, has made my life worthwhile. I have much to be thankful for. Am I going too long? Tell me, please. More than a boy who would get lost on his way home growing up in Bedford-Stuyvesant had ever imagined. More than a boy who sat in the Paramount Theater in Brooklyn with stars in the ceiling and got the piss scared out of him watching War of the Worlds, the first one. Or the young man who got lucky one night in a drive-in watching Alan Pakula's Stereo Cuckoo, or watching part of it. Or the night spent talking about the Seventh Seal or Amarcord or Weekend or Knife in the Water. And all the times I was lost or confused or afraid, I always had a place to find myself in the dark of a movie theater. I got the following email from Brad Pitt recently. It said, "Hey, you big dumb bitch," which could use a little rewrite. But he wrote, "Good morning, sweetheart. Thanks for not waking me when you left. Would you have any musings at hand on the subject of film, the power of what you love and hope for a film when it falls short, etc.? Or can you direct me to any folks who have written on the subject? You're a crusty cranky in need of a shower fucker, but of course, your deep, dark secret is a profound love of life and those who inhabit it. Your secret's safe with me, Brad." And my answer was, "Dear Blondie, go do what you do best, off-road motorbiking." This is far out of your territory. The people who have written most intelligently about this is someone who has always hated everything I ever wrote, but he knows how to write, David Thompson. And any of the Pauline Kael books of criticism and essays from the literati and not the literati side of things, and avoid Manola Dargis at any cost. She has nothing worth saying. From my point of view, here you go. Films have us succumb to the primal nature of the imagery, whether beautiful, heroic, horrific, or sublime. It's certainly that cliche of what dreams are made, those words and images that are able to, in an instant, transport themselves into our psyches, the place where we live in all of the zones, from love to erogenous, from flight to fight, to sadness and loneliness, to understanding and misunderstanding. I'm getting there. Film, to my mind, is our imagination brought alive and can transport us to worlds we've never known, and maybe even better, nowhere we have ever thought about, and make them real. Invention. I think the great films, those lives of strangers are living still in some alternate universe, that Orson Welles is still looking for his rosebud, that the Corleones, Michael and Robert Duvall, and Sonny and Brando are still living their lives and running those gray streets of Brooklyn, that their hopes and wars are still being fought. McMurtry is still fighting Nurse Ratched for sanity, and there are rings to be found, toys that come alive, and nobody dies, not for real, not forever. Any of the great ones live on somewhere in time, whether Star Wars or Butch Cassidy or Raging Bull or Cuckoo's Nest or Annie Hall, or maybe even something as simple-minded as Forrest Gump, or as soft as Kill a Mockingbird, as electric as a Fight Club. Now that nonsensical man running is still running in our minds. That little girl is watching her father leave the courtroom. They're still cooking lobsters, jumping off cliffs. Are you kidding? The fall will kill you, man. They're all in their other universe, living and breathing. I used to imagine when I was a little boy a place where storybook characters, the nursery rhymes, and Dr. Seuss of it all went to rest on the other side of the moon, where they slept and lived together until one was called or conjured to come be told to a child in Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn, 1950, as he fell asleep. But his children were lulled off the creature or character cartoon, packed up his bag, and went home again to that other place on the other side, to wait to be called again and again, so in great film living on in their own in the back of our minds. And when the film is less than it could be imagined, our minds wander because it hasn't reached what it has to reach, the stars, if you will, but more. It hasn't reached some undefinable truth. So those that are short of remembering, they ring hollow and make the time wasted when the time wasted is a crime. While the great ones, like great novels or plays, the great moments in sports last forever. I tried to get there. I wrote mostly about loneliness and some sort of courage for conviction and an inexorable hand of time. God knows I've fallen flat in my face enough to know the hollow bell. And we have a room full of those who go there every day just to find a perfect little dream. And I said to Mr. Pitt, did I say too much? Did I answer anything? And I signed it, don't you have anything better to do, Eric? And to you, my fellow travelers, my only advice is stick around long enough and you never know what you're going to get. Thanks for this.